welcome to True Crime 757, where we're going to dive deeper into the stories that we cover on air, but we're going to get into some of the details that we couldn't fit on TV. I'm Maddie Miller, and I'm joined here by Margaret Kavanaugh, our investigator. And today we're talking about a story that's happening right here in our backyards at our local ports. It has to do with illegally obtained items, anything from stolen cars to drugs that are put in these shipping containers with the goal of selling them overseas at a high price point. Now, Customs kind of peeled back the curtain for Margot and gave her a look at a facility where they take these suspicious containers to and then observe them closer. So, Margot, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I've taken two tours last year, and then I did another one this year. And it was so interesting to see the inside. You know, we driving around Hampton Roads, you see the shipping containers and all the water, and we know that the port's there, and we know so much is coming in and out. But to go into this facility was so interesting because they opened these containers for me in like real time. Like they didn't know what was it. They knew there could be something suspicious, but then they're opening the containers and then looking at it and letting us look at it and film it. And it's just amazing what some of the criminals are doing to try to make some really big bucks, because this is extremely lucrative. I didn't realize how lucrative till I started talking to them, you know.
That is so cool. I thought that they had already screened those containers and then showed them to you. So that's cool that you saw them in action like that.
Yeah, they saved both times like a few for us to see right there. So that was really awesome of them to do and interesting to see.
So some of those good ones that they saved, what was in there?
So the real money maker with a lot of this is the cars. So what people are doing are stealing cars from different parts of the country, a lot coming from the Midwest, they said, and up north. Then they wind up in our area, in our port, and what they're trying to do is take these cars and ship them mostly to West Africa and the Middle East. And so they can sell them for really high amounts, especially if they're high-end cars. So they shove them into these storage containers, and you can see from the pictures in the video, it's really crazy. Like they'll shove the cars on top of each other, and then they'll shove all kinds of different things to try to mask what they're doing inside. Sometimes they shove like multiple cars into one shipping container. And then as soon as port officials started, the Customs and Border Protection started telling me, you know, we caught wind of what they were doing, they'd find new ways. And one of those ways would be to like cut the cars up into different pieces. And then, you know, so you can't see it when they're looking through the, you know, whatever imagery thing that they're looking at to scan the different cargo containers. So it was just so crazy.
I could not believe the lengths they went to. There was one where it was, I don't know how they did this, 2 cars like stacked on top of each other with stuff in the middle. It wasn't like a solid surface either. It was individual small items like in between these 2 cars.
Yeah, they put, and like there was all kinds of junk, like baby carriages, mattresses, you know, rugs, old things, just crazy. And then trying to hide it so that people can't see what's in there. And some of them didn't have all the junk mixed in with the cars, sometimes just the cars. But it just depends on what criminal is doing what and how they want to try to execute their plan, you know?
Yeah, I think there was one container that you saw, and it was of a Mercedes-Benz. And you were like, if you look closer, you can see the Benz. I'm like, where is it? And it was just buried way back there.
In his stuff. Yeah, it was real. Those pictures in that video are so cool and it's really cool to see in person, but those pictures try to, you know, capturing that. I was trying to get as close as I could and, you know, get those shots so that you can really see what they're doing. It's crazy. And it's not just the cars too. They do it with the construction equipment. You know, they try to ship drugs in and out of the country through these storage containers. There's also like faulty merchandise that's brought there for them to look through. You know, if it doesn't meet certain protocols, you know, it's not allowed to come into the country, which some of it does, you know, inevitably get in and get out. But yeah, so that they're working hard to try to check what's coming in and out of those containers, you know. And people too. Once in a while they say that they'll try to ship human beings. So that's super dangerous and sad, yeah.
Right. And we all know how much comes in and out of this area, out of our busy ports. And Mark Laria, I believe his name was, the port director, he was telling you that there are certain red flags that they see, like once all of these shipping containers come in. Did he kind of touch on that with you?
Yeah, he'd say that they use the different imagery to kind of look for things that look unusual. I think the different things that they would see would be red flags that they would then pull certain things aside and then send to this place to get checked. But, inevitably, there's a lot of stuff that doesn't get caught, and they say it's super difficult to investigate these things because it's coming from so many people. It's a tough thing to try to stop when there's so much of it.
I remember we got one press release from Customs about AC units, and there were, I forget the exact number, but hundreds of these that they ended up confiscating. How do they identify if something is not made up to standard, if something's faulty?
Yeah, so they do different checks and different tests on the stuff that is coming in, and I think there's like a protocol with the different items and the merchandise that they are able to go and look, and certain things I think it's obvious that they can tell that it's problematic. Other things they have to do a little bit more digging to figure it out. But it's a huge warehouse. It's several different rooms. We showed in the video like the one main room where they bring a lot of the cars come in, but it's huge out there, and they have a lot of different people working, opening things up, going through everything, and it's a really interesting job. And the Customs and Border Protection people that I spoke with both times I were there, they're super down to earth. They're so very, very. They were happy to explain, what they're doing in terms of these efforts. So it was really interesting as a reporter to go see that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it sounds like they work so hard. I couldn't believe you reported that in 2023 and 2024, both years, close to $10 million worth of stolen cars alone, just the stolen cars.
Yeah, and
Wow.
so and some of these cars are really expensive. Like the top one I know they sent to me, it was a Rolls Royce worth $470,000. It was headed to Turkey, and they found it.
Oh
So
my.
I know, it's like crazy, but that's why people are doing it, because they can make so much money. There's so much money to be made with it. And stealing cars is a constant issue. I remember who said it, the National Insurance Crime Bureau had reported in 2024 that there were 850,000 cars stolen, and the FBI says that's one in every 40 seconds, roughly. It changes, and they're just statistics, but it's a problem that we see all the time in the newsroom. People complaining about it, people dealing with it. It's an ongoing issue. Not all of them are winding up at ports.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times they're winding up other places, but some of them are winding up, at the ports in these efforts to try to make big bucks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So the stolen cars, I can see why that would be something that people would want. Something that did shock me, though, was the demand for construction equipment, and we're going to touch on that right after this break. Thank you for joining us. We're back and ready to continue our conversation about this construction equipment.
Mm-hmm.
So we know the stolen cars, why people would want those, but the construction equipment being in high demand is shocking. Can you tell us about a local woman you spoke to from Virginia Beach? She was, I believe, approached in a homelessness camp with a very intriguing, high-paying offer to help carry out what officials think was part of this criminal operation to get some construction equipment overseas.
Yeah, so we have a lot of really, it's really similar to what goes on with the cars. We have a lot of great construction equipment that's here in the United States, and they can make a lot of money if they steal it and then sell it to people in other countries, get it shipped over there. So they use it for various projects over there, but we do have a lot of good stuff. But this woman, it really broke my heart. She got in trouble. She told me that, and it was in the search warrant as well, she was in this homeless camp, and this guy approached and offered people money. It was a lot of money, I think a few $1,000s or $1,000 to go to Home Depot and rent equipment with their ID. So it was like using her information to rent the equipment. The equipment was eventually discovered down in Florida at a shipping container, like a place that it appeared that it was going to be shipped overseas, but she had used her information. Then they tracked it. The police, once they got involved, when Home Depot said, hey, this is stolen, they then tracked it to her with her information. And she's like, I just let this guy use my information. And yes, she was wrong, and she broke the law, and she did an interview with me and talked about it, about how she knew something seemed weird. She saw red flags, but really needed money. She said she had been living off and on, at the camp and then in a storage unit facility. So she was really down on her luck. When I interviewed her, she was doing a lot better and things had improved. But at that time in her life, she was having a tough time. And that, that situation happened, and she felt really bad as well. I felt like she was expressing a lot of remorse and just didn't know that this is what they were doing with, the equipment. Regardless, she shouldn't have done it. She was very admitting to that, but it was just kind of like, the guy that went to the homeless camp to kind of prey on these people was never found and never faced any charges because they couldn't find him. They called him Florida, too. That was his name.
Oh, yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
And from the search warrant you obtained, it sounds like that was kind of his goal, to have somebody do or take the fall for it. Like, he went to this homelessness camp where he knew that somebody would jump at the opportunity to get this $2,000, and all he said, right, was you just need to have an ID and you need to rent this equipment. Like, she did not know what the equipment was going to be used for. And so then they could then resell that equipment. I mean, luckily in this case, the police stopped it. The equipment was found and it was returned to the rightful owner. But if it hadn't been, that equipment could have wound up overseas, and then you get all this money and it's stolen equipment. And by the time it gets over there, the officials have told me once it's very like, it's not like you're going to get it back if it makes it, over to the other. Sometimes they can stop it in transition. Sometimes they can stop it, but many times once it makes it, it's very hard to deal with the authorities over there to try to do cases and such for things like that. She actually wanted to, I feel like part of the reason she spoke with you was to warn others about this.
Yeah.
And I just want to play a quick bite of your interview with her.
Sure.
I definitely hope people take heed to the warning, and they learn through my experience. And definitely don't be naive. People are not honest, trustworthy people out here. They're out for their own.
And what's interesting is when you reached out to Home Depot, they were like, oh yeah, we know this is going on. This is not the first time. Can you kind of explain what they said?
Yeah, I mean, they were just, they're the victims in the case. They say that this happens. They have people in place that investigate stolen equipment, stolen merchandise. They try to have protocols in place to prevent it from happening. But, they know it's a problem. They know that this happens. They know it's shipped to the ports, and they're working to try to, combat it. But it is a difficult thing when you're renting out equipment for people to use, and they're using either fake IDs or other people's IDs, to track down if it does in fact get stolen. Now, some of them also put GPS units. That is something that they've been doing more and more of, where some type of tracking device on the equipment so they can see where it is. They see where it winds up, or so they're trying to do that to combat the problem.
Mm-hmm. And then there was one other case that you covered. Construction equipment from North Carolina was found, I believe, in our local area in Virginia.
Yes. So I interviewed the sheriff over in, it was one of the rural counties far in North Carolina, and he explained to me how this is a problem that they see out there in the rural areas where their stuff is taken. The state police had an investigation and they tracked it using tracking and different things it looked like it was headed to Portsmouth. And some of the officials said to me, it appears that it was headed for a shipping, to be shipped out. It didn't make it that far. But the driver, who there was a chase with state police, took off on foot and I believe got away. As the last I heard of that, but they were able to find the equipment and then return it back to the people in North Carolina, the business that owned it out there. But it's a very, very intricate. There's a lot of different people, working these crimes.
Right, and I feel like you have to have a lot of background knowledge. It's not like I could just go and steal construction equipment. I wouldn't know where to go about that and
Yeah.
how to get away unscathed before even attempting to put it in a shipping container, no less.
Yeah, it's like they know what they're looking for. The sheriff said to me, these people have a very, intricate plan when it comes to what they're taking, how they're taking it, when they're taking it. Sometimes they monitor the equipment. They'll go to different businesses and watch how it goes, when it's moving, or what's, being done, so that they could position themselves in the best possible time and place to then come in, take it, and leave. The sheriff did provide me with some pictures of when it actually happened, when it was taken from the lot where it was taken in North Carolina, and you could see the guy running in, coming, hooking the piece of equipment to the trailer, and then like taking off from the scene.
Oh, wow.
So there were just still images, and they're kind of blurry, but it's interesting to see, how someone is actually, doing this. But he says it happens frequently, unfortunately. Yeah.
And it does shock, like, even though they have to steal the equipment, transport it, and then get it into a shipping container, like all of those different aspects of it, all of the technology that's deployed to nab them, and how many of them get away. I believe, did they use flock cameras for this one?
Yeah, there was
Okay.
flock that was used to track him. I think when he got over to Portsmouth too, that was part of the investigation, seeing the path in which he came and was headed towards, Portsmouth.
Oh, and then did he have the address in his GPS and just booked it without?
Yeah,
Okay.
it was the Portsmouth. Yeah, there was a Portsmouth address that's what it said in the search warrant, that when they found the car, it was like all plugged in there, so they could see where it was going.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's very intricate.
That's so fascinating.
Yeah.
So officials shared a lot of their process with you on how they go about investigating these cases and finding who did this and how they're doing this. But they also gave some tips to the public on how they can prevent themselves from becoming victims. And that's what we'll touch on after this break. Welcome back, and thank you for joining us. Now, Margot, investigators said that there are typically 3 main ways that people will go about stealing a car. It was using a fake ID, and then stealing someone's identity to do so. And then the third one was kind of interesting and may seem obvious.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the cars are just getting stolen right out of people's driveways, from businesses, on streets, in cities, wherever. If they spot a car that they think that they can make some money at, that they know how to steal, I mean, that's how a lot of them are getting stolen. The other way, too, is a lot of the people will use fake information and go rent a car, and then the car winds up being sent to another country. By the time the rental company understands or realizes what's going on, it's long gone. But in some cases they do also put GPS tracking on their cars to try to kind of prevent some of this. But it is a concern, people renting cars and then giving false information and then just having your car stolen right off your driveway. How horrible,
Right, and I can't tell you how many times I've just left my car unlocked. Even right outside work, if I'm just coming in to grab something that I forgot.
Yeah.
But it can happen that fast.
Yeah, we even had people that we got in trouble in this. They put out pictures that they were breaking into cars here in downtown Norfolk. But yeah, I mean, I always try to remember to lock my car, because sometimes I've been like, there's nothing in it. If they want to, open the door and just so they don't break. I had my window broken one time, so that was like expensive to fix. I'm like, there's nothing in here. You could just come in,
Yeah.
But after seeing this and seeing the cars, I lock my door. I try to make more of an effort. It's shocking to see the cars in the containers, being shipped over there. So I try to make an effort to lock my car doors.
Yes, and it's like we were talking about earlier. I do feel like this Hampton Roads in general is kind of a hotspot for stolen cars. We get so many press releases from police encouraging us to tell our viewers to lock their cars because there are so many incidents.
Yeah.
I think earlier this year out on Bonnie Road in Virginia Beach, it was 30 cars all on one street were broken into in a busy neighborhood.
Yeah, and that's a Customs and Border Protection really emphasize lock your cars, lock them, get tracking devices if you can. On my car, I can see where it's parked, at all times on the app, so I could see if it's helpful too if you're, come out of the mall and you're like, where did I park my car? You could just look right there. But yeah, so you can see where it is or where it's parked or if someone took it.
Right, and I guess that would be helpful too, because it sounds like what they were telling you is time is of the essence. Once it leaves the country on that shipping container, it's not likely to be recovered. So can you also just kind of touch on that aspect and how widespread these operations are?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that are involved in this type of crime, from the time that the people that are stealing the cars and then bringing them to the port to be shipped out, and then the people that are taking them once they arrive at wherever the destination is, whether that's West Africa, the Middle East, or wherever else they're going. There's many people that are doing this. And so, the sheriff and other officials have said these are very complex investigations with a lot of different hands in the pot, moving around. And so it can be very difficult for them to investigate, they told me, and it's hard to track down some of the situations, and they really don't know. Like, we don't know how many cars are slipping through the cracks and getting overseas. So Norfolk did rank that second in what was the second most recovered stolen vehicles, only next to New York. So this is a spot where they're bringing these cars, and it is a problem that they're trying to combat every single day.
Wow. Okay, so moral of the story is lock your car.
Yep. Yeah.
And they said hide your valuables too, so people aren't enticed to check, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's what, and the police have said that to us so many times, with don't leave your laptop. And I always think that my purse, you go into the gym, don't leave your purse where people can see it, or your work stuff or whatever,
That's good to keep in mind, because sometimes I'm just it's fine, but you never know, clearly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for all of that information, and we'll see you next time.